I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. They found my handmade gift in the trash. Not tucked away in a closet, not donated to Goodwill in the trash. The hand-painted photo album I'd spent 3 months creating, filled with restored family photos going back 4 generations, crumpled between pizza boxes and champagne bottles like worthless garbage. I was supposed to take out the recycling that morning at my son's house. Instead, I found my heart's work stained with coffee grounds, a banana peel smeared across the photograph of my late husband's mother. I stood there in the driveway, garbage bag in hand, and something inside me didn't just break. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. But here's the thing, I didn't cry. I pulled that album out, brushed off what I could, and smiled. Because in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. My name is Sofia Martinez. I'm 67 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I understood what family meant. I thought unconditional love went both ways. I thought if you gave enough, cared enough, sacrificed enough, it would eventually matter. I was wrong. But let me start at the real beginning, not the trash can beginning. That comes later, and trust me, you'll want to hear how I got there. The real story started on a Tuesday morning in October 2003. I was 44 years old, standing in my son Robert's cramped apartment, holding my newborn grandson Jonathan for the first time. He was 6 pounds, 3 ounces of wrinkled perfection, with a tuft of dark hair, and my late husband Harold's nose. Harold had died 2 years earlier. Heart attack at 52, right there in our kitchen while making his morning coffee. One moment he was laughing at something on the radio, the next he was gone. The doctor said he probably didn't feel any pain. I've never been sure if that made it better or worse. After Harold died, I threw myself into work at the county library and tried to fill the silence of our too-big house with audiobooks and gardening. But when I looked into Jonathan's tiny face that October morning, something shifted. Here was a second chance. Here was purpose again. "Mom, I don't know how we're going to do this," Robert said. He was 20, working 2 jobs, morning shift at a warehouse, evening shift, doing security at an office building. His girlfriend Lauren was 19, still in nursing school, exhausted from the delivery. "You're going to do it one day at a time," I told him, "and I'm going to help." I meant I'd babysit occasionally, maybe watch Jonathan on weekends. What I didn't know was that occasionally would become constantly, and help would become raise him myself. Within 3 months, I'd cut my library hours down to part-time. By the time Jonathan was 6 months old, I'd basically moved into Robert's apartment, arriving at 5:30 every morning so Robert and Lauren could get to work and school. I'd feed Jonathan, change him, play with him, read to him. When Robert came home at 9 p.m., I'd hand over a clean-fed, happy baby and drive back to my empty house. "Mom, what would we do without you?" Robert said one night, and I glowed with pride. I should have been worried instead. By the time Jonathan started kindergarten, the pattern was set in stone. I was the one who took him to school every morning. I was the one at every parent-teacher conference because Robert and Lauren were always working, always building their careers, always climbing that ladder to financial security. "Mrs. Martinez, Jonathan is reading at a 3rd grade level already," his 1st grade teacher told me during our fall conference. "You must work with him a lot at home." I did. Every afternoon we'd sit at my kitchen table because by then I'd insisted we do homework at my house and practice reading, writing, math. I bought educational games with my library paycheck. I took him to museums on Saturdays while Robert caught up on sleep and Lauren studied for her nursing boards. When Jonathan was 7, Robert and Lauren finally saved enough for a down payment on a house. Well, saved enough isn't quite accurate. They'd saved $15,000. The house they wanted required $25,000 down. They needed another $10,000. "Mom," Robert said over Sunday dinner at my place because I always hosted Sunday dinner. I hate to ask, but I knew what was coming. I'd known since they started house hunting. "We're so close to getting out of that apartment," Lauren added. Her voice had that rehearsed quality, like they'd practiced this conversation. "It would be so much better for Jonathan. A real yard. Good schools. But we're just short on the down payment." How much, I asked, even though I already knew. $10,000. Robert couldn't meet my eyes. "I know it's a lot, but we'd pay you back." "Once we're settled, once Lauren finishes school." "You don't have to pay me back," I interrupted. "This is for Jonathan. This is for family." I wrote the check the next day from my savings account, the money Harold's life insurance had left me. The same money I'd been planning to use to finally replace my ancient car, to maybe take a vacation I'd been dreaming about for years. They moved into their new house 3 months later. At the housewarming party, Robert gave a toast, thanking everyone who'd helped them achieve this milestone. He thanked Lauren's parents for lending them furniture. He thanked his boss for being flexible with his schedule during the move. He thanked the real estate agent for finding them such a great deal. He didn't mention the $10,000 I'd given them. Not once. I told myself it didn't matter. Family doesn't keep score right. As Jonathan grew, so did the expenses. And somehow I was always the one covering them. Soccer league at age 8, $1,200 a year for fees, equipment, and travel to tournaments. "Mom, you should see him play," Robert would say. "He's really talented. This could be important for his future." Piano lessons at age 9, $800 a year. "Music develops the brain," Lauren explained. "We really want him to have these opportunities." Summer camp at age 10, $3,000 for 2 weeks at a prestigious camp in the Berkshires. "All his friends are going," Jonathan told me, his eyes wide and hopeful. I said yes to everything. I worked extra hours at the library. I stopped eating out. I learned to make a chicken last 4 meals. My own clothes got older and more worn, but Jonathan always had the latest soccer cleats, the nicest backpack, the newest gaming console for Christmas. On Jonathan's 10th birthday, I spent 2 weeks planning and executing a massive party at my house. I made the cake from scratch, a 3-layer chocolate masterpiece that took me 8 hours. I decorated the entire backyard with a superhero theme. I organized games and bought prizes for all 15 kids who attended. At the end of the party, as I was cleaning up wrapping paper and paper plates, I overheard Lauren talking to another mom. "Sophia really goes all out, doesn't she?" the other mom said. "She does," Lauren replied. "I guess when you don't have much else going on in your life, you can put all your energy into grandkid stuff." I stood there in my kitchen holding a trash bag full of party debris and felt something small and cold settle in my chest. But I pushed it away. Lauren was stressed, I told myself. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. By the time Jonathan turned 13, something else had started to shift. He'd begun calling me Grandma Sophia instead of Nana. It seemed small, but it felt like a distancing, more formal, less intimate. "It's more mature," Lauren said when I gently mentioned it. "He's becoming a young man. He can't call you baby names forever." But I remembered when he was 3 climbing into my lap and saying, "I love you, Nana," with chocolate pudding smeared on his face. I missed that closeness more than I wanted to admit. The real financial devastation started when Jonathan was 17. He'd applied to colleges, and his top choice was Boston University, private school, excellent reputation, and expensive $65,000 a year. The financial aid package came through, Robert told me over the phone. His voice had that careful, practiced tone again. "It's good, but there's still a gap." "How much?" I asked, my stomach already sinking. $70,000 over 4 years. We've run the numbers every possible way, Mom. Even with loans, we're short. And we don't want Jonathan starting his life buried in debt. But burying me in debt was apparently fine. They came over for dinner the next week, lasagna like always, because it was Robert's favorite. Jennifer made it now instead of me, but she always forgot to add enough oregano. Jonathan was upstairs in what used to be his bedroom at my house, probably on his phone. "Mom," Robert started clearing his throat 3 times before continuing. "We need to talk about Jonathan's college situation." "I know," I said quietly. "We've explored every option," Lauren jumped in. Her voice was apologetic but firm, like she'd rehearsed this too. "Even with federal loans, even with him working part-time, we're still $70,000 short over the 4 years. We don't want to burden Jonathan with that kind of debt when he's just starting out." But burdening me was a different story. I had money left from Harold's life insurance, though not as much as they probably thought. I had my pension from the library. I'd retired early to have more time with Jonathan. I had Social Security starting next year. I could make this work. Somehow I could make this work. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll cover the gap." The relief on their faces should have been my first warning. Not gratitude relief. Like they'd already known I'd say yes. Like they'd already made plans based on my money. "Thank you, Mom," Robert said, hugging me. "We knew we could count on you." $70,000 over 4 years. That's $17,500 per year. More than $1,400 per month on top of the birthday gifts, the Christmas presents, the just because surprises I was always sending Jonathan at school. I'll never forget the day I transferred that first payment. I sat in the bank looking at my savings account balance drop by $17,500 in a single click. The money Harold and I had saved for decades, the safety net he'd wanted me to have, disappearing into Jonathan's future. This is for his education, I told myself. This is an investment in his future. What I didn't realize was that I was investing in him while bankrupting myself. Jonathan graduated from Boston University on a beautiful May morning in 2026. I wanted to be there so badly. I'd paid for 4 years of his education. I'd sacrificed so much to make his dreams possible. Mom, about graduation. Robert had called me 3 weeks before the ceremony. There's a bit of an issue with tickets. What kind of issue? They only give each graduate 4 tickets, and with me and Lauren plus Lauren's parents, we're already at 4. I felt my throat tighten. I see. We thought maybe you could watch the live stream. They're broadcasting it online. You'd have just as good a view, probably better than being there in person. Of course, I heard myself say. That makes sense. I spent Jonathan's graduation day alone in my living room, watching a pixelated video stream on my laptop. When they called his name Jonathan Michael Martinez, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science magna cum laude, I cried. Not just from pride, but from the crushing realization that I'd paid $70,000 to watch my grandson graduate on a computer screen. Robert texted me a photo afterward. Jonathan in his cap and gown, surrounded by Robert, Lauren, and Lauren's parents. Everyone smiling. Everyone proud. I wasn't in any of the photos. It was like I didn't exist. But I pushed down that hurt. I told myself graduation tickets were limited. It wasn't personal. They probably felt terrible about it. They didn't feel terrible enough to save me a seat at the celebration dinner, though. That was family only, apparently. And even though I'd functioned as Jonathan's parent for most of his life, even though I'd funded his entire education, I wasn't quite family enough for that. 3 months after graduation, Jonathan came to my house with news. This was rare. He rarely visited anymore unless he needed something. He was too busy with his new adult life, too focused on his future. Grandma Sophia, he said, sitting in my living room with the confidence of a young man who'd never faced real hardship. I have an incredible opportunity. He laid out his plan. A tech startup. An app that would revolutionize something I didn't entirely understand. Something about connecting freelancers with small businesses using blockchain technology. He spoke in acronyms and buzzwords that meant nothing to me, but his enthusiasm was infectious. The only problem is initial capital, he said. I need $50,000 to build a working prototype. Once I have that, I can pitch to real investors. This could be huge, Grandma. This could set me up for life. $50,000. I didn't have $50,000. Not anymore. Not after college. My savings account had maybe $8,000 left. My checking account had $1,200. I was living on my pension and Social Security, and it wasn't much. But I had equity in my house. The house Harold and I bought in 1985 for $45,000. The house we'd paid off over 30 years of careful mortgage payments. The house Harold died in, where his memory lived in every room. The house I'd planned to leave to Robert someday to give Jonathan a safety net. Let me think about it, I told Jonathan. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator running numbers. A home equity line of credit would give me access to $50,000 at 6.5% interest. That would be $475 a month in payments for 15 years. My monthly income, $2,310. My monthly expenses, $845. That left me $1,465 a month for food, medical expenses, emergencies, and anything else that came up. If I took on this loan, I'd have less than $1,000 a month for everything. But this was Jonathan's dream. This was his future. What kind of grandmother would I be if I didn't help? I took out the home equity loan the following week. I handed Jonathan a check for $50,000 with my hands shaking slightly, but my voice steady. I believe in you, I told him. Thanks, Grandma Sophia, he said, folding the check into his wallet. This is going to be amazing. You're going to be so proud. He hugged me briefly awkwardly and left. That was the last time we really talked about the business. Oh, I'd ask how it was going during our increasingly rare phone calls. Good, he'd say vaguely. Lots of moving parts. The business failed within 11 months. I found out not from Jonathan, but from Robert. Hey, Mom, just wanted to let you know Jonathan's startup didn't work out. These things happen. It's all part of the entrepreneurial journey. He'll bounce back. Didn't work out. That was it. $50,000 money I didn't have, money I'd borrowed against my home, gone. And Robert's response was, "These things happen." I waited for Jonathan to call, to apologize, to explain, to say something. Weeks passed, then months. He never called. The monthly payment on that home equity loan was $475. Every month, like clockwork, $475 disappeared from my account. Money I desperately needed for food, for utilities, for the dental work I kept putting off because I couldn't afford the $220 it would cost. I stopped buying meat except chicken thighs on sale. I learned to make rice and beans in 15 different ways. I kept my thermostat at 62 degrees in winter because I couldn't afford higher heating bills. I skipped my annual physical because the $45 copay seemed impossible. But I never said anything. What kind of grandmother would make her grandson feel guilty? What kind of mother would burden her son with her financial struggles? 2 years after the business failure, Jonathan met Isabella Williams at a networking event. She was 25, polished, from a wealthy Connecticut family. 6 months later, they were engaged. I was thrilled for him. Truly. Isabella seemed lovely, poised, educated, ambitious. During the handful of times I met her before the wedding, she was always polite, always saying the right things. "Jonathan speaks so highly of you, Mrs. Martinez," she'd said once over dinner. "Did he?" I wanted to ask, because he rarely called anymore, but I just smiled and said, "That's sweet of him." The wedding was planned for June in Napa Valley. Destination wedding. Expensive destination wedding. When Robert told me about it, he added casually, "I hope you can make it, Mom. I know the travel might be tough." Tough. The flight alone was $680. The hotel they'd blocked rooms at was $320 a night for 3 nights. Then there were meals, wedding gifts, appropriate clothes. I'd been wearing the same dress to every family event for 5 years. I couldn't afford any of it. But how could I not go to my only grandson's wedding? I put it on credit cards. All of it. The flight, the hotel, the rental car, the dress I bought at Macy's on sale, the wedding gift, a beautiful crystal vase set that cost $200. I told myself I'd pay it off slowly. What was another layer of debt when I was already drowning? The total damage to the $800 on my credit cards. Money I absolutely didn't have. The wedding itself was beautiful. The venue was a gorgeous winery with rolling hills and perfect weather. Isabella looked stunning. Jonathan looked happy. I should have been happy too. But during the reception, as I sat at my assigned table 18 at the back of the room with distant cousins I'd met once, I watched Robert give his father of the groom speech. "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible," Robert said, his voice carrying across the room. "Thank you to Thomas and Patricia Williams for their incredible generosity with the rehearsal dinner. Thank you to the best man, Derek, for organizing an unforgettable bachelor party. Thank you to our amazing wedding planner, Cynthia, for executing Jonathan and Isabella's vision so perfectly." He went on. He thanked the DJ. He thanked the caterer. He thanked people I'd never heard of. He never mentioned me. Not the grandmother who'd raised Jonathan. Not the mother who'd given him $10,000 for his house down payment. Not the person who'd paid $70,000 for Jonathan's college education and $50,000 for his failed business. Not the woman who just put $2,800 on credit cards she couldn't afford to be here. I sat at table 18 holding my glass of champagne I didn't want and felt something crack inside me. Not break, just crack. Like the first fracture in a dam before everything comes flooding through. I didn't make a scene. I smiled through the rest of the reception. I hugged Jonathan and Isabella and wished them happiness. I took my rental car back to my hotel room and sat on the edge of the bed, still in my Macy's sale dress, and stared at the wall. That night I couldn't stop thinking about that speech. About all the people Robert thanked. About how easy it would have been to add one more name. About how I'd been erased from the narrative of the day I'd helped pay for. But still I pushed it down. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe public recognition didn't matter. Maybe this was just how modern families worked. Maybe I was expecting too much. 6 months later in December, Robert and Lauren hosted Jonathan's 30th birthday party at their house, the house I'd helped buy. It was a big celebration. 40 people catered food, an open bar set up in the dining room. I brought my gift carefully wrapped. A vintage Omega watch that had belonged to Harold. I'd had it professionally restored for $800, money I'd saved for 3 months by skipping even more meals, by keeping my heat at 60 degrees, by not filling the prescription for my blood pressure medication. The watch had been Harold's pride and joy. His father had given it to him when Harold graduated high school. It had history, meaning love, embedded in every tick. I'd had it engraved on the back, "To Jonathan with all my love, Nana." I'd started calling myself Nana again in the engraving. Maybe Jonathan would remember those early years. Maybe this gift would remind him of the grandmother who'd raised him, who'd loved him with everything she had. Jonathan opened presents in the living room, surrounded by friends and family. Designer sunglasses from Isabella, a golf club set from Lauren's parents, a weekend trip to Las Vegas from his best friends. When he got to my gift, he opened it quickly, barely looking at the presentation I'd so carefully arranged. "Oh, a watch," he said. "Thanks, Grandma." He set it aside on the coffee table and moved on to the next gift. He didn't read the engraving. He didn't ask about its history. He glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds before his attention moved to someone handing him another present. I watched that watch. Harold's watch, the watch I'd saved for 3 months to restore, sit on the coffee table for the rest of the party. Unopened boxes piled up around it. Someone set a drink down next to it, leaving a water ring on the table. Jonathan never looked at it again, not once during the entire party. Later, I went to use the bathroom. On my way back, I walked past the kitchen. The door was partially open and I heard voices. Lauren and Isabella. "I mean, she tries, I guess," Lauren was saying. "What did she give him?" Isabella asked. "Some old watch. It belonged to his dead grandfather or something." "Oh my God," Isabella laughed. "Who wants their dead grandfather's old watch? Jonathan's got an Apple Watch. He's not going to wear some ancient thing." "Exactly," Lauren agreed. "Like, I appreciate the thought, but honestly, sometimes I think she just doesn't understand the modern world. If she wants to give gifts, just give cash, you know." They both laughed. Easy, casual laughter. Like they were discussing something trivial and mildly amusing instead of dismissing months of my sacrifice and decades of my husband's memory. I stood in that hallway holding a paper plate with a half-eaten slice of birthday cake and felt that crack in my chest widen. Not break, widen. I went home that night and sat at my kitchen table until 3 in the morning. I kept thinking about that watch, about Harold's face when his father gave it to him, about the weight of it on Jonathan's wrist that would never happen now, about the casual cruelty of just give cash. As if I had cash. As if I hadn't been choosing between groceries and electricity. As if 800 hadn't required me to skip my blood pressure medication for 3 months. But still I didn't say anything. What would I say? That I'd overheard them, that my feelings were hurt, that seemed so petty, so oversensitive. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I didn't understand the modern world. Maybe old watches really were useless to young people with Apple Watches. I opened my journal that night, a habit I'd kept since Harold died. I needed to process what I was feeling. As I flipped through old entries looking for a blank page, something caught my eye. An entry from 18 years ago when Jonathan was 5 years old. "Today, Jonathan told me, 'I love you more than Mommy.'" My heart melted. I know it's wrong to feel proud of that, but I do. Robert looked hurt when Jonathan said it, but he's always working. Someone has to be here for this boy. Someone has to show him what unconditional love looks like. I stared at those words. Someone has to be here. I'd written that like it was noble, like I was filling a necessary gap. But had I been filling a gap? Or had I been creating one? Had I enabled Robert and Lauren to disconnect from their son by being so available? Had I competed for Jonathan's love instead of encouraging his relationship with his parents? Had I helped create the very dynamic that was now crushing me? I closed the journal and put my head in my hands. This realization didn't make anything better. If anything, it made it worse, because it meant I bore some responsibility for this situation. I'd trained them to use me. I'd taught them my love had no limits required, no reciprocation came without conditions. And they'd learned the lesson well. Despite everything, I still wanted to believe in us, in family, in the possibility that my love mattered even if it wasn't being reciprocated the way I'd hoped. That May, Jonathan and Isabella celebrated their first wedding anniversary. They were doing well now. Jonathan had landed a better job at a tech company making good money. Isabella had been promoted to senior analyst at her firm. They'd moved into a nicer apartment in San Francisco, one with a view of the bay. Things were looking up for them. They were building a life, a future. I wanted to celebrate that with them. I wanted to give them something special, something that showed how much I loved them, how proud I was of everything they'd accomplished. But I had no money. My credit card debt had climbed to $9,200. I was still paying $475 a month on the home equity loan. I was still sending Jonathan $500 a month for rent. Oh, I forgot to mention that part. It started about 6 months after Jonathan and Isabella got married. Robert called one Tuesday evening. "Mom, I hate to ask, but Jonathan and Sophia are really strapped this month. Moving expenses were more than they anticipated, and they're a bit short on rent. Could you help them out just this once until they get their footing?" Just this once. $500 wired to Jonathan's account. "Thanks, Grandma Sophia," he'd texted. "You're a lifesaver." The next month, another call. "Mom, I know you helped last month, but they're still getting settled. Would you mind covering rent again just until Isabella's promotion comes through?" Another 500, and then it became routine, expected. Every month I'd wire 500s to Jonathan's account. Sometimes I'd get a text thanking me. Usually I'd get nothing. It was just understood that Grandma Sophia would send money. For 2 years I sent 500s every month. That's $12,000 total. $12,000 while I was eating rice and beans 5 nights a week. $12,000 while I was keeping my heat at 62 degrees in January. $12,000 while I was rationing my blood pressure medication because I couldn't afford both the prescription and groceries. But they needed it, right? They were young, just starting out. I was old. I didn't need much. That's what I told myself. So for their anniversary, I couldn't give them money. But I could give them something money couldn't buy. I could give them time, effort, love. I could give them something handmade, something meaningful. I decided to create a family photo album. I spent the first week of May in my attic going through boxes I hadn't opened in years. Old photographs in shoeboxes and albums, some dating back to the 1920s. Pictures of my grandparents who'd immigrated from Ireland in 1918. Pictures of Harold's parents who'd crossed the border from Mexico in 1925 with 2 young children and $17 in their pockets. I found photographs I'd forgotten existed. My parents on their wedding day in 1949. Harold and me at our wedding in 1975, young and hopeful. Robert as a baby, as a toddler, as a young man. Jonathan at every stage of his life. I took them to a specialty photography shop and had them professionally scanned and restored. The shop owner, a kind woman named Patricia, treated each photograph with reverence. "These are treasures," she said, carefully handling a photo of Harold's grandmother. "Real family history. They don't make photographs like this anymore. The scanning and restoration cost $350. I paid with my credit card, which was already maxed out at $8.700. But this was important. This was legacy. For the next 3 months, I worked on that album every single day. I bought a leather-bound album from an art supply store, $80 on the credit card. I bought special paints, brushes, archival quality pens, another $120. Every morning I'd sit at my kitchen table and work on the pages. I hand-painted designs on each one. For photographs from the 1920s and 1930s, I painted Art Deco geometric patterns in gold and silver. For the 1940s and 1950s, I painted delicate Victorian roses and vines. For the 1960s and 1970s, I painted bold, mid-century modern designs. Each page took between 6 and 8 hours to complete. My hands would cramp. My eyes would blur. I had to use a magnifying lamp for the detail work, and even then I'd often have to stop and rest because my vision would get wavy. But I kept going, because this mattered. This was important. I wrote captions in calligraphy beneath each photograph explaining who each person was, what their lives were like, how they connected to Jonathan. "This is your great-great-grandmother, Maria. She crossed the border at El Paso in 1925 with 2 children and $17. She worked in the fields for 20 years, bent over crops in 110-degree heat, so her children could go to school. Your great-grandfather, my father-in-law, was one of those children. He became a teacher. He changed hundreds of lives. Her sacrifice made your life possible. This is your great-great-grandmother, Eileen. She came through Ellis Island in 1918, escaping poverty in Ireland. She worked as a seamstress in a factory 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. She saved enough money to bring her younger sister over 2 years later. Your great-grandmother, my mother, was born here in 1922. Eileen made sure all her children went to high school, which was rare for immigrant families then. Her courage made your education possible. Every photograph told a story. Every caption connected Jonathan to the struggles and triumphs of the people who came before him. I included photos of Harold at every age. Harold as a young man so handsome in his army uniform. Harold holding baby Robert in 1983, his face full of pride and terror. Harold teaching 10-year-old Jonathan to fish at Lake Morrison, both of them laughing. On the final page, I placed a photo from Jonathan and Isabella's wedding. Them looking at each other during their first dance, their faces full of love and hope. Beneath it I wrote, "And now you write the next chapter. Honor those who came before by living with purpose, with gratitude, with love. Make your legacy worthy of theirs." The album was finished on a Friday in late May. My hands were cramped into claws from the detailed work. My back ached from hunching over the table for hours every day. My eyes were strained and red. But it was done. It was beautiful. It was the best thing I'd ever made. It was 3 months of love bound in leather and painted with hope. I wrapped it carefully in tissue paper, and then an elegant gift wrap, $25 on the credit card. I drove to Robert and Lauren's house for Jonathan and Isabella's anniversary dinner on Saturday evening, the wrapped album on my passenger seat, my heart full of anticipation. I couldn't wait to see their faces. I couldn't wait to watch them flip through the pages, to see them connect with their history, to watch recognition dawn as they understood the depth of the legacy they carried. The dinner was small, just family. Robert and Lauren, Jonathan, and Isabella, me. Lauren had made a pot roast. Everyone was in a good mood, celebrating the happy couple's first year of marriage. After dinner, they opened gifts in the living room. Isabella's parents had sent a wine club membership, 12 bottles of premium wine delivered monthly for a year, $1,200 value. Jonathan and Isabella oohed and awed over it, immediately looking up reviews of the first wines they'd receive. Robert and Lauren gave them a weekend getaway to Lake Tahoe, a stay at a luxury resort with spa treatments and gourmet dinners. They presented it with a folder full of printed brochures and reservation confirmations. Jonathan and Isabella thanked them effusively, already planning which weekend to go. Then Jonathan opened my gift. He peeled off the wrapping paper. I watched him tear through the careful folds I'd made and looked at the leather album. "Oh," he said, "a photo album." He opened it, flipped through the pages, quickly, too quickly to actually read the captions or study the paintings. Maybe 30 seconds total for 3 months of work. "That's nice, Grandma Sophia," he said, his voice polite but distant. "Very vintage." Isabella leaned over his shoulder, glancing at the pages. "It's so quaint," she said, "like something you'd find at an antique store. Very shabby chic." "That aesthetic is having a moment right now," Lauren added, her tone bright and encouraging, like she was trying to help me feel included. "You could probably sell these on Etsy. People love that handmade vintage look." They all laughed, friendly, casual laughter. Then they moved on to discussing the wine club and the Tahoe trip in detail. Which wines to try first. Which weekend would be best for Tahoe. Whether they should do couples massage or separate massages. My album sat on the coffee table, already forgotten. No one asked about the photographs. No one read the captions. No one looked at the paintings I'd spent hours creating. I sat on the couch holding my glass of wine and felt that crack in my chest widen further. But I smiled. I nodded along to the conversation. I pretended everything was fine. "They'll appreciate it later," I told myself on the drive home. "When they have time to really look at it, they'll understand." I believed that. I needed to believe that. 3 days later, I was at Robert and Lauren's house again. They were going on a trip, that Lake Tahoe getaway they'd given to Jonathan and Isabella. The 4 of them were making it a family trip. "Mom, would you mind watering our plants while we're gone?" Lauren had asked. "We'll only be gone 4 days." "Of course," I'd said. I had a key to their house. I'd had one since they'd moved in, since I used to watch Jonathan there after school before he got old enough to be home alone. I let myself in on Monday morning, found the watering can under the kitchen sink, tended to Lauren's collection of spider plants and African violets. On my way out, I remembered it was trash day. Tuesday was their trash pickup, and their bins were still in the garage. I'd take them to the curb for them, I decided. One more small way to help. I grabbed the first trash bag from the bin in the garage. It was heavy, full of what felt like kitchen waste. As I lifted it, the bag shifted, and I saw something through the black plastic. Something familiar. Leather. Painted gold. The corner of a photograph. My hands started shaking as I set the bag on the ground and opened it. There, crumpled between pizza boxes and champagne bottles from their anniversary dinner, was my album. Coffee grounds stained the cover. Lauren must have dumped the morning's coffee filter right on top of it. The pages were bent and crumpled. A banana peel had leaked onto the photograph of Harold's mother, yellowing her face. I pulled it out slowly, brushed off the worst of the garbage. The coffee stains wouldn't come out. Some of the paint had smeared where the banana peel had leaked. The careful calligraphy was spotted with grease from the pizza boxes. 3 months of work, 4 generations of history, hundreds of hours of love. In the trash like it was worthless, like it had never mattered at all. I stood in that garage holding that ruined album and I didn't cry. That crack in my chest didn't break. It shattered. Completely. Irreparably. And I smiled. Because in that moment, standing in the garbage-scented dimness of my son's garage, I finally understood. I finally saw clearly. They didn't value me. They never had. I wasn't family. I was a resource. An ATM with a pulse. A convenient source of money and labor and time, but not a person. Not someone whose feelings mattered. Not someone whose love deserved reciprocation. I took the album home. I cleaned it as best I could, but the damage was permanent. The coffee stains remained. The bent pages wouldn't lay flat. The disrespect was embedded in every ruined inch of it. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. Not a pros and cons list. Not an emotional processing list. A facts list. Numbers. Cold, hard numbers. Because numbers don't lie, and I'd been lying to myself for 23 years. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop, the laptop I'd bought used 5 years ago, because I couldn't afford a new one, and started typing. Money given over 23 years. College tuition for Jonathan. $70,000. Business investment home equity loan. $50,000. Monthly rent assistance. $500. 24 months. $12,000. Down payment for Robert's house. $10,000. Not $25,000 like I'd remembered. I checked my old bank statements. Soccer piano camps. 12 years estimated $45,000. Gifts, travel incidentals estimated conservatively $30,000. Total $217,000. My current debt because of them. Credit card number 1, $4 200 credit card number 2, 3 100 credit card number 3, $1 900 home equity loan remaining $35,000. Medical bills accumulated from skipped appointments. $3 $400 total debt. $47 $600. I stared at those numbers. $217,000 are given. $47 $600 in debt. And for what I opened a new sheet. Emotional ledger. Emotional inventory. Past 2 years, times they asked how I'm doing, 4 times I asked about them. 247, I counted. I went through 2 years of text messages. Birthday gifts to them. Items. 46 average value. $65 each. EOS $2. 9 Birthday gifts. From them. Starbucks card. $15 scented candle. $12. Nothing. X 5 years equals $27 total. Family dinners. I hosted 18 family dinners they hosted for me. 3. All required babysitting. Favor thank you texts received 12, mostly thanks with no follow-up. Times they visited me unprompted, 0 times. I felt invisible. Constant. I created one more list. The list I should have made 23 years ago. What I need to pay off all debt. To live without financial anxiety. To stop choosing between medicine and food. To feel seen. To feel valued. To matter. I stared at these lists until the numbers blurred. Then I saved the file, titled it The Truth, and closed my laptop. Tomorrow I decided everything would change. Tomorrow I would choose myself. The next morning I woke up at 6 a.m. Not because my alarm went off, I hadn't set one. I woke up because for the first time in 23 years I felt something I'd almost forgotten existed. Clarity. I made coffee. Real coffee, not the instant kind I'd been buying to save money, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. The damaged album sat beside me, coffee-stained and bent. I decided to keep it there, not as a reminder of pain, but as evidence. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. Proof that I deserved better. I opened my laptop and started making calls. County Trust Bank, this is Linda speaking. How can I help you today? Linda had been my banker for 15 years. She'd processed Harold's life insurance payout. She'd helped me open the home equity line of credit. She knew my financial situation better than anyone. Linda, it's Sophia Martinez. Sophia, how are you, honey? Haven't heard from you in a while. I need you to cancel an automatic transfer. The $500 monthly payment to Jonathan Martinez's account, effective immediately. Silence on the other end. Then carefully, Sophia, are you sure you've been doing that transfer for over 2 years now? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Okay, I heard typing. Done. The transfer scheduled for tomorrow is canceled. Is there anything else? Yes. I need an appointment with your financial advisor as soon as possible. I can get you in with Margaret tomorrow morning at 10. Would that work? Perfect. Sophia, Linda said, her voice gentle. Are you okay? I looked at the ruined album, at the spreadsheet still open on my screen, at the stack of unpaid medical bills on my counter. I'm going to be, I said. Patricia Moore had sold Harold and me our house in 1985. She'd walked us through every step of our first home purchase, had celebrated with us when we paid off the mortgage in 2015. She'd even come to Harold's funeral. Sophia Martinez, she said warmly when she answered. To what do I owe this pleasure? Patricia, I want to sell my house. The warmth in her voice shifted to concern. Sell the house, Sophia, that's your home. You've been there for 40 years. Is everything all right? Everything is finally becoming all right. Can you come by this week to do a market analysis? Of course, but Sophia, this is a huge decision. Have you talked to Robert about this? This is my house, Patricia. My decision, not Robert's. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. How about Thursday afternoon, say 2 o'clock? I'll see you then. After I hung up, I sat for a moment, my hand still on the phone. My house. 40 years of memories. The place where Harold and I had built our life. The place where I'd raised Robert. The place where Jonathan had spent countless afternoons doing homework at my kitchen table. But it was also the place where I'd slowly suffocated under the weight of everyone else's expectations. The place where I'd made myself smaller and smaller to make room for everyone else's dreams. It was time to find a place that was just mine. I found Gerald Thompson's number in the Yellow Pages. Yes, I still use the Yellow Pages. He was an estate planning attorney with an office downtown. His ad said compassionate counsel for life's important decisions. I needed both compassion and counsel. Thompson Law Office, this is Gerald speaking. Mr. Thompson, my name is Sophia Martinez. I need to revise my will. Of course, Mrs. Martinez. May I ask what kind of changes you're looking to make? Substantial ones. I need to restructure everything. I see. Can you come in Friday at 2 p.m.? I'll be there. 3 calls, 3 decisions, 3 steps toward choosing myself. I poured another cup of coffee and opened my laptop again. I had more work to do. While organizing documents for my meeting with the financial advisor, I found something in the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. An old passbook from County Trust Bank, yellowed with age, held together with a rubber band that crumbled when I touched it. I didn't recognize it at first. Then I saw the account name, Harold Martinez Small Business Account. My hands started shaking. Harold had run a small handyman business on weekends for years before he died. Nothing major, fixing neighbors' leaky faucets, repairing fences, small electrical work. He'd called it beer money, though he'd saved most of it. I'd forgotten about this account. After Harold died, I'd been so overwhelmed with grief and paperwork that I'd only dealt with our main accounts. This one had slipped through the cracks. I opened the passbook with trembling fingers. The last entry was from April 2001, 25 years ago. The balance then had been $8,943. But joint accounts don't close when one person dies. They just sit there accumulating interest. I called Linda back. Linda, I have a question about an old account. Joint account with Harold opened in 1995. The number is, hold on, let me look that up. Typing sounds. Then a pause. Oh my. Sophia, this account is still active. It's been sitting dormant for 25 years, but it's still yours. What's the balance, with accumulated interest? $14,780. I had to sit down. $14,000. Money Harold had saved. Money he'd earned with his own hands, fixing things, helping people. Money he'd never gotten to use because he died too young. Mrs. Martinez, are you still there? I'm here. Linda, can you transfer that money into my checking account? Absolutely. Give me just a minute. While I waited, I looked at the photo of Harold on my mantel. Him at 50, standing in our backyard with his toolbox grinning at the camera. Still young. Still vital. Still here in a way. All set, Linda said. The money will be in your checking account by end of business today. After I hung up, I walked to Harold's photo and touched the frame. You're still taking care of me, I whispered. Even now. That $14,000 felt like more than money. It felt like permission. Permission from Harold to save myself. Permission to stop sacrificing. Permission to finally choose me. Margaret Chen's office was small but organized with motivational posters about financial freedom on the walls. She was about 50 with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mrs. Martinez," she said, shaking my hand. "Linda gave me a brief overview of your situation. Let's take a look at everything together." I handed her my spreadsheet, the one I'd created the night before. The truth laid out in numbers. She studied it for a long time. Her expression shifted from neutral to concerned to something that looked like anger. "Mrs. Martinez, I need to be direct with you. You're in a financially abusive situation." What financial abuse? It's a form of domestic abuse where someone uses money as a tool of control. In your case, your family has been exploiting your resources for decades while leaving you in debt. But they didn't force me. I chose to help them. Did you? Or were you manipulated into feeling like you had no choice? From what I'm seeing here, they've conditioned you to believe that saying no makes you a bad grandmother, a bad mother. That's abuse, Mrs. Martinez. I sat back in my chair. Abuse. The word felt too strong, too dramatic. But was it, "Here's what we're going to do," Margaret continued. "First, we're going to create a plan to get you out of debt. Then we're going to build you a safety net so you never end up in this position again." She pulled out a calculator and started running numbers. "Your house is worth approximately $520,000 in today's market. Patricia's right about that it's a seller's market. If you sell after closing costs and realtor fees, you'll net about $495,000. That's conservative." She wrote numbers on a notepad. "Pay off your debts, $47,600. That leaves you with $447,400. Now I've been looking at condos in your area. There's a beautiful community called Ocean Breeze about 15 minutes from here. One-bedroom units are going for around $280,000. You could buy one outright, no mortgage." "No mortgage," I repeated. The words felt foreign. Freedom felt foreign. "That leaves you with $167,400. We put $50,000 in an emergency fund that's untouchable except for true emergencies. We invest $80,000 conservatively. At a modest 5% return, that's $4,000 a year, or about $330 a month in additional income." She looked up at me. "That leaves you with $37,400 for whatever you want. Travel, hobbies, new furniture, a new car, whatever brings you joy." Joy. When was the last time I'd done something purely for joy? Your monthly income would be your pension at $1,420, Social Security at $890, and investment income at $330. That's $2,640 a month. Your condo expenses would be HOA at $320, utilities at maybe $100. You'd have over $2,000 a month for everything else. No debt, no rent, no mortgage. She leaned forward. "Mrs. Martinez, you could live comfortably. You could eat real food. You could turn on your heat. You could see your doctor. You could live." I felt tears rolling down my face. I hadn't realized how much I'd been barely surviving until someone showed me what living could look like. "How soon can I start?" I asked. Patricia came Thursday as promised. She walked through the house with a practiced eye, making notes, taking photos. "The market is incredibly strong right now," she said. "I think we can list at $520,000 and expect multiple offers. Probably over asking. How fast can we move?" "I can have photos done tomorrow, listing up by Monday. In this market, you'll have offers within a week." "Do it." The for sale sign went up Tuesday morning. I watched from my living room window as Patricia's team hammered it into my front lawn. "Martinez family home, for sale." Mrs. Chen from next door was outside within 5 minutes. "Sophia, what's happening? Are you moving? I'm downsizing Dorothy. Time for a change." "But you've been here 40 years. Where will you go?" "Somewhere smaller. Somewhere by the ocean. Somewhere that's just mine." Dorothy looked confused, but she hugged me anyway. "Well, if it makes you happy, dear." Happy, yes. For the first time in decades, I was choosing happiness. By noon, the neighborhood group chat was buzzing. Lauren was in that chat, and someone had already sent pictures of my sign. My phone rang at 12:47 p.m. Jonathan, first call from him in 6 months. "Grandma Sophia, what the hell is going on? Dad said you're selling the house." I took a breath. "I am." "But why?" "That's our family home. That's where I grew up." "Our family home." Interesting choice of words from someone who hadn't visited in over a year. "You didn't grow up here, Jonathan. You visited here. You grew up at your parents' house. You know what I mean? This is where we had holidays. where we had family dinners. You can't just sell it. I can, actually. It's my house. But where will we have Thanksgiving? Where will we have Christmas? Where will we have family gatherings? The audacity, the sheer audacity of asking where he'd have free holiday meals at the same time he'd thrown my gift in the trash. I suppose you'll have to host them, Jonathan. Silence. Long telling silence. Grandma, I don't understand. Did we do something wrong? Did we do something wrong? Not did I do something wrong. We. Spreading the responsibility, diluting the guilt. Jonathan, do you even remember what you threw away? What in the album? The anniversary gift I made you. More silence. Longer this time. Oh, that. 3 months of work was that. That album contained 4 generations of our family history. Photographs of your great-great-grandparents. People who came to this country with nothing, who suffered and struggled and sacrificed so you could have the comfortable life you take for granted. I spent 3 months restoring those photos, painting those pages, writing those stories. Grandma, we thought it was kind of old-fashioned. You didn't mean to hurt me, I know. That's the problem, Jonathan. You didn't think about me at all. Just like you didn't think about me when you accepted $70,000 for college and never said thank you. Just like you didn't think about me when your business failed and left me with a loan I'll be paying for 10 more years. Just like you didn't think about me when I sent you $500 every month for 2 years while I was eating rice and beans because I couldn't afford anything else. I heard his breathing change. Quick, shallow. Was he crying? Grandma, I didn't know. About the food, about the money trouble. You never said, because you never asked. None of you did. You just took and took and took, and I gave and gave and gave, and somehow we all convinced ourselves that was love. But it wasn't love, Jonathan. It was exploitation. And I'm done. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Sorry doesn't pay my debts, Jonathan. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I spent struggling so you could be comfortable. Sorry doesn't make me feel less invisible. What can I do? How can I fix this? Nothing. There's nothing you can do now except learn from it. Learn that love goes both ways. Learn that handmade gifts represent time you can never get back. Learn that the people who love you aren't infinite resources. Learn to say thank you. Learn to ask how people are doing. Learn to give, not just take. I want to make this right. Please, tell me how to make this right. Then make it right with your own children someday. Don't make the same mistakes. Don't take the people who love you for granted. Don't assume they'll always be there, always willing to sacrifice, always strong enough to bear the weight alone. Grandma, I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The phone rang again immediately. Jonathan. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Robert this time. Voicemail. Again. Lauren. Voicemail. I turned off my phone and made myself a cup of tea. Real tea with honey. I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the ruined album, at the coffee stains and bent pages that would never be fixed. And I smiled. The house sold in 4 days. 3 offers, all over asking. I accepted the highest one, $548,000, closing in 30 days. I'd already found my condo. Ocean Breeze Unit 304. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 750 square feet with a balcony facing the ocean. Perfect. It was listed at $275,000, but the seller accepted my offer of $270,000 because I was paying cash. Cash. No mortgage, no debt. The words felt like a prayer. I was at home packing boxes I'd started early, excited to move when I heard car doors slam in my driveway. Multiple doors. I looked out the window and saw all of them. Robert, Lauren, Jonathan, Isabella. An army of concerned family members here to save me from myself. They knocked. I considered not answering, but I'd spent 23 years avoiding confrontation, and look where that had gotten me. Time to face this head on. I opened the door. Mom, we need to talk, Robert said. He looked tired, stressed. Good. Come in then. They filed into my living room, looking at the packed boxes with distress. Lauren's eyes were red. She'd been crying. Jonathan looked wrecked, like he hadn't slept. Isabella just looked uncomfortable. Mom, please, Robert started. You're not thinking clearly. This is a huge decision. You can't just sell the family home. It's my home, Robert, not the family home. Mine. And yes, I can sell it. But where will you go? How will you manage? I bought a condo. Ocean breeze. I'm moving in next month. You bought? Lauren looked shocked. With what money? The audacity. The absolute audacity to ask me about my money when they'd been draining me dry for decades. With my money. From selling my house. Mom, listen, Robert said, using his patient voice, the one that implied I was being irrational. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you should talk to someone. This isn't like you. You're right. It's not like me. The old me would have kept sacrificing until there was nothing left. The old me would have kept giving while you kept taking. But I'm not that person anymore. We think you need help, Lauren said. She glanced at the others for support. We're worried about you. Where was that worry when I couldn't afford groceries? Where was that worry when I was skipping my medication? Where was that worry when I was choosing between electricity and food? Silence. You weren't worried about me. You're worried about losing your safety net. You're worried about what happens when the ATM machine stops working. That's not fair, Jonathan said. His voice was thick with emotion. We love you. Do you? When's the last time you called just to talk? When's the last time you visited without needing something? When's the last time you asked how I was doing and actually waited for an answer? None of them could answer. Here's what's happening, I said, standing up. I'd been sitting, but I needed to stand for this. I needed to be taller, stronger, clearer. I'm selling this house. The proceeds are paying off the debts you helped create. I'm moving to a place I can afford. I'm revising my will. The inheritance you were expecting is going to pay for my care, my life, my future. What's left when I die goes to charity and to Jonathan's future children if he has any. Not to any of you. Mom, Robert looked stricken. And most importantly, all financial support stops. Immediately. No more rent money, Jonathan. No more emergency loans, Robert. No more contributing to gifts and vacations and celebrations I can't afford. I'm done being your bank. You're being selfish, Lauren said. Her voice had an edge now, the tears drying up into anger. Yes, for the first time in 23 years I'm being selfish, and it feels wonderful. This is ridiculous, Lauren continued, standing up. You're tearing this family apart over money, over things that don't even matter. I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm revealing what was already broken. This was never a family. This was a transaction. I gave, you took. That's not family. That's exploitation. How dare you? How dare I? I felt my voice rising, felt anger I'd suppressed for decades finally finding its way out. How dare you? How dare all of you? You took my money, my time, my love, and you gave nothing back. You threw my gifts in the trash. You forgot my birthdays. You excluded me from graduations I paid for. You made me invisible while treating me like a bank account. And now you have the audacity to stand in my house that I'm selling to escape the debt you caused, and call me selfish. The room was silent. Isabella had tears running down her face. Jonathan looked like he might be sick. Robert and Lauren just looked angry. I think you should leave now, I said quietly. Mom, Robert tried. Leave, all of you. I have packing to do. They left. Robert and Lauren angry and confused. Jonathan looking back at me with something that might have been regret. Isabella just looking sad. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it. I'd done it. I'd set boundaries. I'd chosen myself. And it felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Friday at 2 p.m., I sat in Gerald Thompson's office with my old will in front of me. This is straightforward, Gerald said. Everything to your son Robert with a contingent bequest to your grandson Jonathan if Robert predeceases you. That's what I want to change. All right, walk me through what you're thinking. I explained everything. The money, the debt, the album in the trash. Gerald listened without interrupting, his expression neutral, but his eyes sharp. Mrs. Martinez, he said when I finished, I have to ask, are you being coerced or pressured in any way? Is anyone forcing you to change your will? No. For the first time in my life, no one is pressuring me. This is my choice. Good. Then let's draft something new. We worked for 2 hours. The new will was clear. First, all proceeds from the house sale go to paying my debts. Second, remaining funds establish a trust for my care, medical expenses, living expenses, quality of life expenses. Third, upon my death, Any remaining funds split 50% to the women's shelter where I'd started volunteering, 50% to an educational trust for Jonathan's future children if any exist. Fourth, Robert and Jonathan receive personal items and photographs only. No money. Fifth, if Jonathan has children, they can access the educational trust at age 18, with one condition: they must write an essay about the importance of family sacrifice and gratitude. This is airtight, Gerald said. No one can contest it. Your mental competency is clear, your reasoning is sound, and you're making provisions for family while also protecting yourself. Thank you. Mrs. Martinez, can I ask you something? Why the essay requirement for the great-grandchildren? I thought about those photographs in the album. About Maria crossing the border with $17. About Eileen arriving at Ellis Island. About all the people who sacrificed so the next generation could have better. Because someone needs to remember, I said. Someone needs to understand that love isn't just about receiving. Someone needs to learn from our mistakes. Gerald smiled. That's beautiful. I'll have the new will drawn up by next week. The closing happened on a Wednesday in late July. I signed papers for 30 minutes, watched numbers transfer electronically, and walked out of the title company as a debt-free woman for the first time in 5 years. Margaret had been right about everything. After paying off $47,600 in debts and buying my condo for $270,000, I had $173,900 left. I put $50,000 in an emergency fund. I invested $80,000 conservatively. I had $43,900 for whatever I wanted. Whatever I wanted. The concept was foreign. I moved into Ocean Breeze on August 1st. Unit 304, my name on the mailbox. My furniture arranged exactly how I liked it. My walls painted the colors I chose: soft blue in the bedroom, warm yellow in the living room. No one to please but myself. The first morning I woke up there, I walked out onto my balcony with my coffee and watched the sunrise over the ocean. The waves rolled in steady and eternal. I felt something I hadn't felt in 23 years. Peace. My neighbor from Unit 305 knocked on my door that afternoon. A woman about my age with kind eyes and gray hair she wore in a stylish shortcut. Hi, I'm Margaret. Thought I'd introduce myself. Welcome to Ocean Breeze. Sophia, nice to meet you. There's a book club that meets Wednesdays if you're interested, and a watercolor class on Tuesdays. The building is pretty active. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. For the first month, my phone rang constantly. Robert, Jonathan, even Lauren. I didn't answer. I told them everything I needed to say. Now they needed to sit with their actions with the consequences of taking me for granted. Jonathan left voicemails. Lots of them. Grandma, please call me back. I need to talk to you. Grandma, I'm seeing a therapist. I'm trying to understand what I did wrong. Grandma, I love you. Please don't shut me out. I listened to each one, but I didn't respond. Not yet. He needed to understand that love required more than words. It required action, change, growth. Robert sent texts. Mom, this is getting ridiculous. We need to talk. Mom, you're being childish. Family doesn't work this way. Fine. I guess family means nothing to you. I responded to that last one. Just once. Family means everything to me. That's why I'm hurt. But family goes both ways. When you're ready to understand that we can talk. After that silence from Robert for 2 weeks. Lauren called once. That conversation was brief. Sophia, you're being unreasonable. Robert is depressed. Jonathan is in therapy. You've ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, Lauren. I stopped enabling. If that broke them, they were already broken. She hung up. I'd been in my new condo for 6 weeks when someone knocked on my door on a Saturday morning. I looked through the peephole. Isabella. Alone. I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Martinez, she said. Can we talk just you and me? I hesitated, then stepped aside. She came in looking around at my space with something like wonder. This is beautiful, she said. Really beautiful. Thank you. We sat on my couch, my new couch when I'd bought at a furniture store with money that was mine to spend. Isabella folded her hands in her lap, nervous. I need to apologize, she started. Not for Jonathan, he can apologize for himself. For me. I waited. I grew up wealthy, like really wealthy. My parents paid for everything, my college, my car, my first apartment. Money was just there. I never thought about it because I never had to. Okay? When Jonathan told me you were helping us with rent, I just thought, I don't know. I thought you were rich, or at least comfortable. I never asked about your finances because it never occurred to me to ask. That was wrong. Why are you here, Isabella? Because Jonathan showed me the spreadsheet, the one you made. He'd written down all the numbers you told him on the phone. $217,000 over 23 years. I calculated what that meant per month per year. And then I looked at our spending, our lifestyle. Mrs. Martinez, we were living beyond our means because you were the safety net. We used you. It was the first time anyone had said it that clearly. We used you. And the album? I asked, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't understand. I didn't get that it was handmade, that you'd spent months on it. I saw it and thought, vintage crafts, not family history. I'm so sorry. And when we threw it away... She stopped crying now. I didn't know it was in the trash. Jonathan's mom must have done it when she was cleaning up. But I should have stopped it. I should have looked at it more carefully. I should have seen what it really was. You're 26, I said quietly. You're young. You didn't know because no one taught you. That's not an excuse. No, but it's an explanation. I paused. What do you want, Isabella? I want to know if there's any chance. If we could have a relationship, a real one. Not based on money or obligation, but on actually knowing each other. I looked at this young woman crying on my couch. She wasn't Jonathan. She wasn't responsible for everything that had happened. And she was here alone trying. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. But it would have to be different. Completely different. I understand. Can I ask what you need? What did I need? I'd spent so long thinking about what everyone else needed that the question felt strange. Time, I finally said. I need time to heal, to figure out who I am without being everyone's resource. And if we rebuild something, it has to be equal. I'm not a bank. I'm not a babysitter on call. I'm a person with needs and feelings and limits. Yes, absolutely. I understand. She stood to leave, then turned back. Mrs. Martinez, thank you for listening, and for everything you did for Jonathan, even if he didn't appreciate it properly. You deserve so much better than what we gave you. After she left, I sat on my balcony and watched the waves. Maybe there was hope. Maybe not with all of them, but with some of them. Maybe broken things could be repaired if everyone was willing to do the work. Fall arrived at Ocean Breeze with cooler mornings and golden light that made the ocean look like hammered bronze. I'd settled into a rhythm that felt almost foreign in its simplicity. Wake up when my body wanted to not when someone needed me. Coffee on the balcony, beach walks, art class on Tuesdays, book club on Wednesdays, volunteer work at the women's shelter on Fridays. For the first time in 23 years, my life was my own. Margaret from Unit 305 had become a real friend. We walked the beach together most mornings talking about books and art and our complicated relationships with our families. My daughter calls twice a year, Margaret told me one morning as we watched dolphins playing in the surf. Birthday and Christmas, like clockwork. Duty calls, nothing more. Does it still hurt? I asked. Less than it used to. I had to accept that I can't make someone love me the way I need to be loved. I can only control how I respond to them. I thought about that a lot. Control, response, boundaries. I'd also met David, not my son, a different David from Unit 208. Retired firefighter 62 with 3 adult kids who rarely visited. We'd have coffee sometimes in the building's community room. Just friends, but it was nice to talk to someone who understood. Best thing I ever did was stop making their problems. My problems, David said once. Took me years to learn that helping and enabling aren't the same thing. The people at Ocean Breeze understood in ways my family never had. We'd all been invisible in our own families. We'd all sacrificed until there was nothing left. And we'd all chosen ourselves, finally, bravely, necessarily. I'd started painting again, watercolors, something I'd loved in my 20s, but had abandoned when life got busy. My teacher Helen said I had talent. I didn't know about that, but I knew it made me happy. That was enough. My first real painting was of the ocean at sunrise. I called it The Tide Returns, because that's what it felt like, life flowing back to me after years of drought. On a Tuesday in late October, my phone buzzed during breakfast. A text from Jonathan. "Nana, can we talk, please? I've been in therapy for 3 months. I've learned a lot. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just a chance to show you I'm trying. Please." Nana, not Grandma Sophia, Nana. That small word cracked something open in my chest. I stared at the text for a long time. Margaret was coming over for coffee. In an hour we'd planned to walk to the farmer's market together. I showed her the text when she arrived. "What do you think?" I asked. Margaret read it carefully. "I think 3 months of therapy is a start. But the question is, what do you want, Sophia?" "What did I want? I want to believe people can change," I said slowly. "I want to believe the little boy I raised is still in there somewhere. But I'm scared. Scared of falling back into old patterns. Scared of being used again." "Then set terms," Margaret said. "If you talk to him, you control how it happens. Where, when, what the boundaries are. Don't let him control the narrative." She was right. I texted back, "We can talk, but I choose when and where, and I need you to understand that one conversation doesn't fix everything." His response came immediately. "Yes, anything. Thank you, Nana." I chose a coffee shop near Ocean Breeze, public neutral territory, on a Saturday morning when the place would be busy witnesses in case emotions ran too high. Jonathan arrived 15 minutes early. I watched him through the window before going in. He looked different, thinner, tired. Older somehow, though only 4 months had passed. When I walked in, he stood up immediately. "Nana," he said, and his voice cracked. "Jonathan?" We sat. The barista brought my coffee I'd ordered ahead, another way to maintain control. Jonathan had a cup in front of him he hadn't touched. "Thank you for meeting me," he started. His hands were shaking. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you." He took a breath. "Nana, I've been in therapy since August, twice a week. I've been working on understanding how I became someone who could hurt you like that. And what have you learned? That I'm entitled. That I was raised to believe the world owed me things. That I took your love for granted because it was always there like air. I never questioned it, never valued it, never reciprocated it." He pulled out a notebook worn filled with handwriting. "My therapist had me make lists. Things you did for me, things I did for you. The imbalance was..." He stopped, swallowing hard. "It was devastating to see it written down. You gave me everything, Nana, and I gave you nothing. You gave me love once," I said quietly. "When you were small, before you learned to take me for granted. I want to find that kid again, the one who loved you without calculation, without expectation." I sipped my coffee, waited. He needed to say this. "The album?" he continued. "I didn't know Mom threw it away until after you found it. When you told me on the phone, I went back to our apartment and looked for it. I wanted to really look at it finally. And it was gone. Isabella told me it got thrown out during cleaning. I felt sick, Nana. Physically sick. 3 months of work, Jonathan. 4 generations of family. In the trash. I know, and I can never fix that. But I want you to know I got the photos from the restoration shop. The ones you had scanned. I got copies." He pulled out his phone and showed me. Photos of photos. Maria at the border. Eileen at Ellis Island. Harold in his army uniform. Me and Harold on our wedding day. "I've been studying them," he said. "Learning the stories you wrote. Understanding where I came from. Understanding what was sacrificed so I could have my comfortable life." Tears were rolling down his face now. "I'm so sorry, Nana. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For the money, for the ingratitude, for making you invisible. For throwing away your love like it was garbage." I felt my own tears starting, but I blinked them back. I wasn't ready to forgive yet. Maybe I never would be. "Words are easy, Jonathan. Change is hard." "I know. That's why I brought this." He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a check for $15,000. "Isabella and I sold her car. We downgraded to 1 car. We moved to a cheaper apartment. We cut our spending by 60%. This is the first installment. We're going to pay you back, Nana. Every dollar. Even if it takes 20 years. I stared at the check. $15,000. Real money. Real sacrifice. "I told you I don't want your money," I said. "I know, but I need to do this. Not for you, for me. I need to know I tried to make it right. I need to prove to myself that I can be better than I was. I pushed the check back across the table. Keep it. Save it. And when you have children someday, put it toward their education. Teach them what you learned. Teach them not to take people for granted. Nana, that's my condition. You want to make this right. Don't pay me back. Pay it forward. Be a better man. Be a better father than you were a grandson. He picked up the check with shaking hands. I can do that. I will do that. And Jonathan, I need boundaries now. If we're going to rebuild this, it has to be equal. I'm not your bank. I'm not your emergency fund. I'm your grandmother, and I deserve to be treated with respect and consideration. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you need. Weekly phone calls. Real conversations where you ask how I am and listen to the answer. Monthly visits where we spend time together, not because you need something, but because you want to see me. And if you have financial problems, you handle them yourself. You're 30 years old. It's time to be an adult. Done. All of it. I promise. 2 weeks after this coffee shop meeting, another knock on my door. Jonathan and Isabella holding something large and wrapped. Can we come in? Jonathan asked. We made you something. I let them in, curious despite myself. They unwrapped it carefully. A painting? No. A canvas print of a painting. My painting. The tide returns, the ocean sunrise I'd done in watercolor class. How did you? Helen, Isabella said. Your art teacher. We reached out to her, explained everything, asked if you had any work we could see. She showed us this one. Said it was your first real piece, that it represented new beginnings for you. They'd had it professionally photographed and printed on a large canvas framed in driftwood. We thought you might want it bigger, Jonathan said, for your living room, to remember this time, when you chose yourself. I looked at the painting, my painting, the sunrise I'd created while healing, and they'd seen it, understood it, honored it. It's beautiful, I whispered. There's something else, Isabella said. She handed me a leather-bound book. We can't fix your original album, but we tried to make something new. I opened it carefully. Inside were photos of me. Me as a young mother holding baby Robert. Me and Harold at our wedding, so young and hopeful. Me at Jonathan's graduation, that pixelated screenshot from the live stream enhanced and restored. Me at Jonathan's wedding, sitting at table 18 in the back. Every page had captions in Jonathan's handwriting. This is Nana at my kindergarten graduation. She took off work to be there. Mom and Dad couldn't make it. She made me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Nana teaching me to read age 4. We'd sit at her kitchen table for hours. She never got impatient, never rushed me. She made learning feel like magic. Nana's lasagna nights. Every Thursday for years. I complained about always having lasagna. I was an ungrateful brat who didn't understand that she was giving me stability, routine, love. The last page had a photo of the 3 of us, me, Jonathan, Isabella, at their wedding. I was smiling, but my eyes looked sad. Jonathan had written, "This is Nana at my wedding." She'd just put $2,800 on credit card. She couldn't afford to be there. I didn't thank her that day. I didn't thank her for the 4 years of college tuition she paid. I didn't thank her for the $50,000 she borrowed against her house for my failed business. I took everything and gave nothing. I was wrong. I'm sorry. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she knows she matters, that she's seen, that she's loved. I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face. We know this doesn't fix anything, Jonathan said. We know we can't undo the hurt. But we want you to know we see you now, Nana. We really see you. A week later, Robert showed up alone. No Lauren, no advanced warning. Just him standing at my door looking like he'd aged 10 years. Mom, can we talk? I almost said no. Robert had been the hardest to forgive. He was my son. He should have protected me. He should have known better. But he was here. That counted for something. We sat on my balcony watching the ocean. I've been thinking a lot, Robert started, about what kind of son I've been, what kind of father, what kind of man. And I failed you, Mom, completely. I let Lauren dictate how we treated you. I let Jonathan take advantage of you. I took advantage of you myself. I stood by and watched you suffer and did nothing. His voice broke. You gave me everything. You gave me life, raised me, loved me. And when Dad died, you were there. Always there. And how did I repay you by bleeding you dry? By treating you like an ATM machine with unconditional withdrawals. Yes, I said simply. No point in softening it. I don't have an excuse. I was selfish. I was blind. He paused. I was relieved, Mom. Every time you said yes to money to helping with Jonathan to covering expenses, I was relieved because it meant I didn't have to. I could put that burden on you and tell myself I was honoring you by asking. But you weren't honoring me. You were using me. I know. God, I know. And I'm so ashamed. He pulled out an envelope, not a check papers. This is the deed to my house, the house you helped me buy with that $10,000 down payment. I want to add your name, make you co-owner. So when I die, you get half. You deserve that. I looked at the papers, at my name typed neatly next to his. Robert, I don't want your house. Then sell your half. Keep the money. Use it for whatever you need. Mom, please, let me do this one thing right. I thought about it, about pride and forgiveness and what it meant to let someone make amends. Okay, I said finally. But not for me, for Jonathan's children when he has them. Your half goes to him eventually, my half goes to his kids. For education, for opportunities, with the condition that they learn our family history, that they understand what sacrifice means. Robert nodded, tears streaming down his face. Deal. Thank you, Mom, for still believing I can be better. I'm your mother, I said softly. That never changes, but the dynamic that had to change, had to. I understand. And Mom, I'm proud of you, for saving yourself, for teaching me finally what real strength looks like. I'm 68 now. I've been living at Ocean Breeze for 8 months, and it feels more like home than that big house ever did. Jonathan calls every Saturday morning, real calls where we talk for an hour. He tells me about his job, his therapy progress, his marriage. I tell him about my art classes, my volunteer work, my life. Last month I had my first art show. 3 of my paintings were accepted into the county art exhibition. One sold a watercolor of the beach at sunset for $400. I donated the money to the women's shelter. Jonathan, Isabella, Robert, and Lauren all came to the opening. They brought flowers. They studied my paintings. They introduced me to their friends as an incredible artist, not grandma or mom, an artist, a person with value beyond her relationship to them. Isabella and I have coffee once a month. Real friendship built on mutual respect. She tells me about her career, her dreams of eventually having children. She asks my advice sometimes, and I give it, but as an equal, not as someone whose job is to fix everything. Robert and Lauren come for dinner once a month. They take turns cooking no more, always being at my house, always being my responsibility. Last month, Robert made lasagna. He'd added enough oregano. The damaged album sits in a memory box in my closet. I don't look at it often, but I keep it. Not as a reminder of pain, but as evidence of the moment I chose myself. My freedom papers as I think of them. And sometimes when I'm painting on my balcony at sunrise, I think about Maria crossing the border with $17. About Eileen arriving at Ellis Island. About Harold saving money in an account I didn't know existed. They all fought for the next generation. They all sacrificed. And maybe that's what I had to learn, that sacrifice is beautiful when it's freely given and gratefully received, but destructive when it's expected and exploited. I have $38,000 left in my personal fund. My monthly surplus is $1,400. I have real food now, heat medicine, doctor's appointments. I'm planning a trip to Ireland next spring to see my grandmother's homeland. Margaret's coming with me. Jonathan and Isabella are saving for a house. They're doing it themselves, no help from me, no help from her parents. They want to prove they can. Last week, Jonathan called with news. Nana Isabella's pregnant. We're having a baby, a girl, a great-granddaughter, new life, new chances. That's wonderful, sweetheart. What are you going to name her? We were thinking Eileen Maria, after your grandmothers, the women who sacrificed so we could be here. Is that okay? I cried. Happy tears this time. It's perfect. And Nana, we want you to be in her life. Not as a babysitter, not as a bank. As her great-grandmother, we want her to know your stories, to learn from your strength, to understand what real love looks like. I'd like that very much. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony and watched the waves. The tide goes out, the tide comes in. Life ebbs, life flows. Nothing is permanent, not pain and not joy. But I chose joy. Finally, bravely, necessarily. They threw my handmade gift in the trash. They treated my love like garbage. And I smiled because their disrespect became my salvation. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is permission to stop giving everything away. 6 months later, Isabella's baby shower. This time I'm not at table 18. I'm at the head table seat of honor as great-grandmother-to-be. Jonathan gives a speech. I want to thank everyone who made today possible, especially my Nana Sophia Martinez. Nana, you taught me the hardest lesson I've ever learned, that love is a verb, not a noun. That respect is earned through action, not demanded through relationship. That family means showing up, not just taking up. He paused, emotional. You saved me, Nana. By walking away, you saved me from becoming someone I would have hated. You taught me that boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to healthier relationships. Thank you. For everything. But especially for loving yourself enough to demand better from us. The room applauds. Isabella wipes tears. Robert looks proud and sad in equal measure. Later, Isabella opens my gift. A hand-painted baby blanket, soft cotton with watercolor flowers. It took me 2 weeks. She holds it up, examining every detail. Sophia, this is exquisite. Look at this detail. This must have taken you forever. 2 weeks, I say, but I loved every minute. We're going to treasure this, really treasure it. And when Eileen Maria is old enough, we're going to tell her that her great-grandmother made this with her own hands, that this represents hours of love freely given, gratefully received. Jonathan holds up his phone. Can we take a picture? I want to document this, everything. So Eileen grows up knowing her history. We take pictures, lots of them. Me holding the blanket, Isabella holding it, all of us together. Later, as I'm leaving, Jonathan walks me to my car. Nana, I put that $15,000 in an investment account for Eileen. It's grown to $16,200 now. I'm adding $500 a month. By the time she's 18, she'll have over $150,000 for college. She'll never have to ask anyone to sacrifice for her education. That's wonderful, Jonathan. And Nana, Isabella, and I talked. We want to set up a monthly allowance for you, not repayment, a gift, $500 a month for whatever you want. Travel, art supplies, anything that brings you joy. I start to refuse, then stop. This isn't enabling. This isn't them taking advantage. This is mutual care freely offered with no strings attached. That's very generous. Thank you. No, Nana, thank you for teaching me that real love sometimes means saying no, for showing me that you can't pour from an empty cup, for saving yourself, and by doing so, saving us. I hug him, my grandson, the little boy I raised, the man he's becoming. I love you, I tell him. I love you too, Nana, and this time I'm going to show it, with actions, not just words. I drive home to Ocean Breeze as the sun sets over the water, my condo, my space, my life. I have $42,000 in the bank. I have no debt. I have real friends, meaningful work art that brings me joy. I have a family that's learning slowly to see me as a person, not a resource. I have myself, and that finally is enough.